Can we have a roll call vote? I mean, a roll call.
Dina Lynn Pascalakis.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Dina P. Pascalakis.
Here.
Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Miller. Here. Ms. Cantrell.
Here.
Mr. Minor.
All right, did everybody receive a copy of the minutes? Are there any, has everybody read it? Is there any adjustments that need to be made? Is there a motion for acceptance?
I'll motion.
Okay, a move from Randall, second.
I'll second.
Second, Teresa. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Item number 4, DEV 2015-098. Second Amendment to Daytona Beach Convention Hotel and Condominiums Plan Commercial Development Agreement. Reed?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to bring to you this exciting project once again because it was so exciting the first couple of times. We've decided to bring it back to you because we're going to be looking at a couple changes to a planned development agreement that we have with Proto Group for the 2 hotels and garage. We okay? Yeah. All right. The amendment highlights that we're going to be talking about tonight is basically changing the schedule for the development in 3 phases. And the reason for that basically goes back to what the developer has been working on to address how this is going to proceed, financing. There's a lot of things that happen between the time that they were working all their permitting and get everything ready and being able to package together all the financing that does occur. So to do this in the way that is going to be realistic and allow for success, they're coming back and asking that they start with a parking garage. And that schedule is one that gets completed on the following basis, that the parking garage would start within 18 months and be completed within 30 months. Now, they've already come in, they've done all the work on the permits to get the paperwork in, and if they were ready to go after this goes through the approval process, once the commission says go and all the documents are signed, basically we're ready to start and build that parking garage. Phase 2, the hotel, which has 459 rooms, would start within 36 months and be completed within 48 months. So you're talking about that 1-year period. The idea is not to wait 36 months, but they want to have that window to work with to put all of the final financing, everything they have to do with it. But again, they're pretty much ready to, I think, move that forward as well. And then phase 3 is a condominium towers, and that had 42 rooms in it that would make the hotel 501 rooms, I believe, altogether. When it was that final phase 3 was up, and then there would be a 60-month time period for this to start, and 72 months for the completion date. Now, we, of course, hope that everything goes sooner, but the important one for us in the redevelopment business is the hotel, and that's just because that's the one that creates the revenue for the redevelopment areas. The condominium and the parking garage, those taxes do not go to the redevelopment agency. They do not go to the beachside, Main Street, where we could put them to use. That will go back to the taxing districts like anywhere else. So the county, the school district, the city, everyone else will have full benefit of this project. With that said, I just was going to run real quickly through the sort of the lay of the land here, what's going on with these phases, and that is that you've got the parking garage and that condominium tower on the north side of Oak Ridge. That's not in the redevelopment area, and the hotel is on the south side, the southeast corner. And if you look at this, they're actually the two towers are connected over Oak Ridge, and so that's one of the tricks of separating the Siamese twin is to figure out where that goes. And it's pretty easy for them, I think, to do this, and there will not be a bridge over the hotel area or from the hotel to the condo until the condo is up and running in phase 3. And this is some of the old graphics that getting a couple years old now, but this shows you the view if you're going east on Oak Ridge and seeing a parking garage to your left and the buildings that are along the ocean. This is the parking garage, and it matches the same material, the look, as what was proposed for the hotel and the condo tower. That is a close-up of the condo tower itself, and you can see that bridged area that connects the two over Oak Ridge. And there it is all together. These are some graphics that also help explain the three phases, where exactly those phases are. So this is sort of helpful for all of us to kind of see where it begins and ends. And you'll notice that that yellow area, the street, when you're asking, well, when's the infrastructure, the public improvements start? It won't happen when the garage is built. That will happen when the hotel is constructed. All the infrastructure, all of that is going to go in at the same time. I'm looking over at you, Clay, just making sure your head's nodding in the right direction. I didn't miss anything there. So again, more of the graphics that help explain these changes and how they'll happen. And in conclusion, it is staff's recommendation that the board approve these changes to the schedule, so that and that it be a phase, not just one unified development, but a phased development, so that they can move ahead and start the business of trying to build this whole project.
Okay, what about, there was talk initially that the city of Daytona was going to do something with Oak Ridge Boulevard, spruce it up or what have you. When will that be happening?
I don't think there's been any commitments made for Oak Ridge. There's nothing in there that was finalized in any agreement to landscape. I know it's been discussed. We've looked at that as something that, as this project moves forward, I'm sure we're going to want to look at how when we do have revenues that are coming from the project, how that might occur, because it's a.
So you anticipate maybe the parking garage creating some revenue? Oh, parking garage won't be creating revenue, it's just a hotel that will.
For the CRA.
Yes.
But remember, the city is getting some revenues from this, and certainly that road could be the city, not the CRA funds. It's really a policy issue for the city commission as to if they want to make some of those improvements out there in the future. But I think at this point it's been left off the table to make any commitments for it. Just simply wait until the project is real and going forward, and then catch up with the beautification, knowing that there's some revenue stream coming in.
Okay, well, I see. Clay, would you like to add to whatever Reed said?
Thank you very much. Clay Irvin, Project Manager with Zev Cohen & Associates, 300 Interchange Boulevard, Ormond Beach, Florida, 32174. Reed gave a good summary, but I do want to kind of elaborate on the financial aspects of it. We were contacted by Alexi, our client, who indicated that quite simply how you finance a condominium for residential use is a completely different animal than how you finance a hotel. Actually being able to fund a hotel is a lot easier because in order to get the funding for the residential component, you have to have 70% of the condominium sold before you get your actual acquisition and development loan. So what he's seeing is that going through the financing aspect to get the condo built would delay everything else. So what he's asked us to do is come up with a plan so we could show, first and foremost, progress in getting the garage built. Our main goal with the second phase is to do as much of the infrastructure, all of the streetscaping that we have been committed to do for along Oak Ridge in the A1A area, and get that all set so that basically we have a pad-ready area for the condo, so that that way when the financing does come through, we have the capability of going vertical quickly. We would love to be able to come in here and say, as soon as phase one's done, we're going to be shooting right into phase two, and right now it looks like that. But as we all know, financial markets sometimes fluctuate. The one good thing that we can say is that we know we had a site plan approved for the entire project. We had building permit plans coming through. We were basically at that point of pulling the building permit when we realized we probably should talk to the staff about phasing. And so that's where we're at right now. The other aspect of it that I want to make sure we're coordinating this also with Volusia County, because Volusia County also has an agreement with us for a use permit as well as an air rights easement for the crossover that Reed referenced between the hotel and condo unit. We've been in communication with Volusia County on the 19th of November, modified agreements going forward that utilizes the same phasing plan. They understood what we were going through. They understood the concerns that we had. We didn't, again, our number one thing is not to slow this down, but we have to be realistic about how our funding mechanisms are going to work. No other changes. The unit count is the same, the footprint the same. Everything else that's been approved by the city is ready to go. We're willing to work by and stand by the approved site plan that's with the city right now. We're just simply asking for a phasing plan so we can make financing easier and making sure that it has allowed this to continue on. I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all or the public may have later on.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Based on what, just kind of a follow-up what Dina was saying and you just said, the developer with the city is going to do a streetscape on Oak Ridge, are they not?
Yes, ma'am. I was looking to make sure I had the correct boundaries because Reed is correct. We're not going to do all the way for Oak Ridge, but basically the original agreement, which we're not changing, as says streetscaping and other improvements that will encourage pedestrian movement and access along Oak Ridge between A1A and the beach are planned. So those are what we're going to be working with the city on.
Okay.
Between A1A and 1?
And the beach.
Okay.
And so we're also working with the county in regards to once we change Oak Ridge east of A1A, either we're going to build new restroom facilities or we're going to give them the cash equivalent to construct those.
Well, my memory was, and it's been a long time ago, but my memory is that when we saw the first presentation, the developer was proposing that they were going to do significant streetscape between A1A and the bridge, Halifax.
There's been discussion about that, and there is avenue for basically the cost sharing and working with the city on that. I think that is also a reference in that maybe funded in partnership with the city or county or other applicable agencies. And so basically we're working with the city to try and make it up so that we can get going on that. I know there's some infrastructure improvements also that we're required to do. So that's also going to play into it as well.
Will that be proposed again then once that's decided on exactly what's going to be done on that street? The residents are obviously they're interested in the streetscape on Oak Ridge, right?
And I can tell you that Alexi is also very well interested in that as well, because Proto Group understands that it's really important that you have an attractive and inviting entrance into your facility. So we're not going to shirk from our responsibilities in helping out with the city on that.
Yeah, in fact, I would say Proto Group took the initiative to suggest this, and that they want to see this happen, but they want to do it in partnership, obviously, with the city, and so. But again, nothing has been decided. It's just as we go forward, we get to the point where we know there's a revenue stream. I think that's when we get re-engaged in that project.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So once you build the phase 3 with the condos, are you going to have any parking on that phase 3 property for the condo owners, that type of thing?
There
or
are
is it-
condos. What we're looking at is primarily the parking garage is a valet service for the hotel, and then the condo has a majority of the parking available for those residents.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other board comments? All right. Okay, thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Any members of the audience would like to come up? Okay, seeing none. Any board discussion? Yeah, do I have a motion on the floor?
I'll motion to pass.
Okay, Randall moves for approval. Is there a second? Dino seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, item number 5, revision of bylaws.
All right. I didn't get any feedback on that one as far as any other changes other than the motion that was made by this board at our September meeting. So,
I have a couple questions about this.
Sure.
I forgot I was supposed to go through, but okay. First of all, if you look at the agenda that we were just handed, and then the proposed agenda within the changes that you have old business and new business, which typically when you run meetings you have old business and new business, but the chair is not going to be saying, is there any old business coming before this board? Because we're not going to be introducing anything at a meeting, that staff hasn't brought to us in the form of an agenda. So, I mean, should we actually have an item 6 and 7, which is old business and new business, when the agenda is kind of preset for us when we come to the meetings?
well, what it does, and it's just customary to have, we don't have to label it old business. We haven't, but we do have projects that come back to us, and we typically give them
Okay,
if
so
they're coming back, the first, they're going to be the first on the list.
Okay, so what you're saying, you're using this as an order
Correct.
into making the agenda, but
That's
not.
correct.
But it's not that I'm supposed to follow this. This is what you follow to make the agenda.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, then that's fine. Okay, is there anybody else that'd like to make any comments? The only last one that I'll make, sorry, is, okay, in the unlikely scenario that both the chair and the vice chair are not here, then suddenly there's going to be having to have a vote to create a temporary chair on that meeting. I almost like the way it was, where the member with the most seniority would automatically be, and then you're not wasting time. But I'm okay with the change. I mean, like I said, it's an unlikely event, but I'm just thinking out loud. You almost are better off. The person with that's been on the board the longest automatically assumes the role. But I'm okay with the change, the way you guys have it. It's just who's going to be the one making the motion, who's going to be I mean, it's like suddenly you're in chaos. You see what I'm saying? Because there's nobody running the meeting, but yet there's supposed to be a motion to create somebody to run the meeting. Go ahead.
Well, typically what happens, Mr. Chair, is either the board liaison or your board attorney will announce that in the absence of the chair or vice chair, we recommend that one of the board members, we cite the rule or the policy and then recommend that the board members make a motion. So,
Okay, and then from there, then he asked for a vote to be
Sure.
the temporary chair. Okay,
Right.
That's fine. Yeah, I just didn't know how it would happen. Okay,
But on the other hand, you're not obligated to make that change. You could continue that policy of having the senior member.
well, the way I see it, I don't think anybody here wants to go through the hassle of suddenly having well, it's not a hassle, but I mean, you're like electing a temporary chair, and it's like a whole other procedure to do. I mean, but,
This isn't the basis of effect if you're gone and Gilbert's gone.
Dino?
yeah.
I'm sorry. I need to correct myself. The new code does specifically provide that you have to.
Oh,
this is consistent with
so
what's
so
now in the
then,
code. You have to take it up to.
then we'll accept it as changed. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to accept the revisions of the bylaws?
So moved.
So, okay, moved by Teresa, second. Linda? Yeah. I wanted to hear your voice. Okay, second by Linda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, redevelopment update.
Okay. Anybody reading the paper lately?
Yes.
You have, okay. ISB's gotten a lot of discussion, as you know, and the gateway, and I think that's all good. I think we've got the Chamber of Commerce is now joining in and looking and wants to see how it can also help, and particularly in what's happening with the private properties. Because one of the difficult things about redevelopment is you can try to get everyone to follow all of the redevelopment standards and the codes, and yet we can't force someone to fill a building. We can't force someone under the laws that we have now to say you must occupy a building. And quite frankly, there are some buildings there that because of their age, their condition, simply can't be occupied. And so while it looks like there's a lot of vacant property or vacant buildings, we've gone out, we've done the surveys, and we're looking at about somewhere around 15 to 18% of the property frontage, if you want to count it that way, or by building, that's about what you're looking at overall in your vacancy. So that means if you're looking at vacancy rates, if you're 80% occupied, you've got a lot of occupancy. You're doing okay, but because of visually what you get out on the street, I think that's the issue that people are focusing on, and it's just this perception that what's in there, what's in the buildings, that's really what people are reacting to. It's just the buildings aren't all empty. The buildings are just maybe containing things that not all of us are going to think are the best things on ISB as a gateway to our community, to our beach.
If anybody was interested, I've got St. Patty's Day
I can't hear you.
decorations and Christmas decorations in my abandoned side of my building.
So,
Wait, what are you saying? I didn't hear you.
614, I have a storefront that's probably labeled as a vacant establishment because
Oh.
I can't afford to get the parking lot paved at the time. So it's full of storage, basically.
right. So we'd like to see a change there, as you know, and the old Howard's ice cream shop. Of course, we'd all love to see an ice cream
I
shop
would love
come
to
back.
put one there.
That would be great. So in lieu of that, and knowing there are people who own property, and they have their own financial issues, but at least we have some other fresh ideas that might be coming in to aid in what we're doing. As you know, we've assembled a lot of property there. We're working with developers right now that are interested in developing down on the bridge where we've assembled some of that property. So you should see some things start happening there in terms of bringing back, hopefully, an RFP and get that issued for our property. And then as you go down and look at this road, the other piece that we've been working on and started with this board back in 2008. And we said we need to change that street. We need to change the look. And that moved to the point of bringing to the commission a contract to hire an engineering landscape firm to go in there, that they had the experience with the streetscape, and do something that I would say is pretty much akin to what you would see over in South Daytona in terms of palm trees, a boulevard. All of that would have been placed there, and I think we came up with an estimate at the time of $2 million from property line to property line, curb to curb. Now, there was nothing magical about what was going to happen there. It wasn't going to get into any property. There were no traffic circles. And so through the design process, the question was, should we be looking at something grander and not limit ourselves in what should be there? And so we went back out and challenged the engineers to look at redesigning that with a wider boulevard to provide traffic circle at both Peninsula and up at A1A. And so that was the next step. And then that moved to bringing in another engineering firm to look at studying traffic circles. Do they work? The question is this really going to make sense? Let's do some additional work on this. So we're now at the point of looking at even maybe some grander schemes in terms of a larger traffic circle out at A1A and ISB. And as we look at some of these concepts, some point we're going to hopefully very soon, in working with the Department of Transportation, be able to come to some understanding of how we can move forward, put together the funding, put together some of these designs, and then once and for all of us will get to see and comment on what some of these plans are that are at this point more engineering and not all of the design that we can visually bring out here and start looking at. But I feel we're getting much closer than we have been the last couple of years. Just the economics are working better. I think Department of Transportation, if you've seen what they have done out on the west side on ISB and all of that development along the Speedway, it's really, really made a big change out there with that corridor. We'd like to see that extended all the way in. But we're jumping ahead now and looking at the focus to really be the beach side. So that's the good news. I'll move over and I'm going to skip events unless somebody else wants to speak to those. And, and I think we are going to have, I believe, the Christmas activities again out at the band shell. And the people who put up the lighting and all of that are going to be there. And the county does a big light show out there as well to kick it off around Thanksgiving. The other thing I want to talk about is I think I challenged everybody on let's go out and maybe do some walking tours. Now, I've done a couple of those now, and Linda Miller was kind enough to invite me over to her group, and I don't know, Linda, if you want to say anything about that and how that went.
Well, the walk went really well. We had about a dozen people from the condo, and they were thrilled that somebody from the city saw how bad Earl Street in Halifax looks, because we see it all the time when we walk. And the plans that we were talking about to do to improve that, everybody's excited about that, but they've lived here a long time. I haven't. And they say, kind of, let's see if it happens. So we're hoping that something does happen relatively soon. It shouldn't be a huge expense, but it would make a huge difference to both residents and tourists.
Yeah, and I mean, we were taking photographs of the cracks in the sidewalk to the some of the houses that weren't being well maintained. But even walking along Halifax, and where we're going to have our Greek festival, by the way, speaking of an
Yes.
event.
Yes, we are.
And that starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Both Dino and my kids are over there practicing dancing right now as we speak. Getting
So-
ready for it.
So we just see that we have some challenges. Some of them are a lot bigger than just calling somebody up and saying, tend to this, let's call a code enforcement person or whatever. There's some potential capital project works that have to occur to make some improvements out there. But if you don't start talking about it now, just don't start looking at it and have a plan, you won't get there. And I think the one thing I enjoyed about the walk was to hear that there's been some real thought given by a group of people who are interested in historic preservation and just letting people know in the hotels and at the Ocean Center and creating a guide. Is that right? You want to talk
That's
to
right. We came up with a plan to use, come up with a brochure, and Commissioner Kelly White helped us develop it, to have a Smith's Memento historical walk, which would be about a mile, a little over 2,000 steps. And as people come on vacation and they enjoy the beach and they enjoy all the meals, they know they've got to get their steps in because their doctors have told them, especially as they get older, you have to have a certain amount of steps in. And that would be a great way to get a mile in, 2,000 steps, and see the history in Daytona. So we'd like to continue working on that. But Earl Street has to be cleaned up because people can't walk down it the way it is, right?
I was a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And you just think what a tourist would think if they came out of their hotel, the boardwalk's beautiful, the ocean's beautiful, and they walk down Earl Street.
You have to walk. If you drive, you just don't
You
see
don't
it.
see that.
So it's helpful. So again, I continue to challenge everybody. You want to go out someday, hopefully not on a real hot one like we had.
Or not at night.
And
You don't want to do it at night either because of there's a lot of what looks like small drug dealing. We talked about that last time,
Right.
and that just happens in that neighborhood. You'd have to have police continually patrolling it in order to eliminate that at that time because of the slumlords in the area, and the people that are renting there are more inclined to do that kind of sale so they can pay their rent and they're not background checked. So it's kind of deep, the action that would have to be taken in order to improve it. But we need to start on it.
right. So, but going out there at night, and some of our people who are looking at lighting, that's one of the things to address that will help as well. So there's a whole lot of things that we can do just in a block or on a single street and make some changes. And when we get the focus on some place, we intend to go in there and make some of the changes that are low cost, doesn't take a lot of time, take some phone calls, and then get it done.
And the one thing about Earl Street is, you have this captive audience with everybody that's going to the Ocean Center and the hotels there, and it's a really short street. There's really just 2 short blocks that you'd have to address to clean it up. And then once people get on Halifax, even though the sidewalk's a little iffy, the houses are gorgeous along the river, and the church is gorgeous, and there really isn't much that needs to be done there. So we're really talking 2 blocks on Earl Street. That's what needs to be really addressed.
And I'm looking, I don't see Amy Pyle, but she was one of the people that showed up at a couple of our meetings. And she's looking at Kemp Street, and now we're trying to focus a lot of ideas. And we create these residential streets to get people in the local community to get to the beach and give them a pleasant experience getting there. But I really think this particular one on Earl Street is interesting because it's doing the reverse as well and bringing our tourists into the neighborhood to look at some of those historic homes that are out there.
And I have to add this one thing, that Harbor View condo has 82 residents, 82 units, and so that's like a huge subdivision, if it was that, but it's a condo, and not all of them are filled with people who live there full-time, but we have people that just come down for vacations on it and come down a few times a year. And when they come down, they go out every night. I mean, they do think it's vacation. And so there's a lot of activity coming from those 82 units. And having Earl Street be a good corridor to the beach, I think, would really make a huge difference.
And where is it in terms of history of where you live now? What was that before it was the harbor?
Well, that's where Batista lived. And once he was not allowed to come back into the United States, when Castro took over, he gifted all that land to the city, and they divided it up, and the Greek church went on one, and an apartment building went on the other half. So there were...
And I was the first person to be baptized in Batista's house.
Wow.
Yeah, ever at the Greek church was actually Batista's house over
Right.
there. you know.
Actually, that was Ol's house, the founder of Oldsmobile. where the
I
Greek
stand
church is.
corrected.
So there's, we could have people walk down Earl Street, and then once you put them on Halifax, you're talking about Batista, you're talking about Ransom Olds, the founder of Oldsmobile. It was at 129 Halifax. And all these houses that have such a history,
But I
a
thought
wonderful
Batista was
history.
the 129 in Halifax.
That was the one that was the Olds Mansion was in there.
Okay.
And Batista was at 137.
Okay,
and
but the house
145
itself was owned by Batista at
Yeah,
129.
right.
Okay.
And he bought Olds' house and then gifted it all to the city and made it a museum. So, there really is a lot of history that people that are walking, they're getting their steps in and learning about Daytona would love to do that. And once they get to Main Street, they're going to want to go into a restaurant, something like that. And so that's something that businesses would like to.
Okay.
So I'm pushing for it.
Okay. Okay. So we're still on project updates?
I'm all done.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's move on to public comments. I see a few people waving their hands. Go ahead, come to the podium and give us your name and address.
My name is Smiley Thurston. I'm from 608 Saxon Boulevard in Deltona, Florida. This is not why I was here, but I heard the discussion about the street that I don't even know where it is. However, I've been in historic preservation for a long time, and I'm very interested in things improving here in Daytona, although I'm from the other side of the county. Just recently closed on a piece of property on ISB in the redevelopment area and found out the building we bought may be gone because of the circle. That's not what is my interest for being here, but could the city offer some type of incentives? I also own property that might be considered questionable, but it's still people living there. I'm a founder and director of the Coalition Against Hunger also, and I'm on the Volusia County Human Services Advisory Board as a voting board member. But just listening to you discuss the street, perhaps a study could be made, or not to spend a lot of money to do a study, but to see if some of the landlords or property owners could be interested in some type of incentives to maybe improve the properties. From what I'm hearing about the residents, that's considered a problem, but everybody deserves a right to live where they can. Perhaps fixing some of those homes up and focusing on the history of them maybe could change the tenant makeup or get the people actually interested in taking care of the homes or the properties they're living in. Just a thought, only a suggestion. Don't even know where the street is, but I'd like to know because I'd like to see the old home. And I did a project with the museum here years ago. I was involved in the digging of the sloth. And the then director, who I don't even remember his name, they were trying to make room for an exhibit for it. And there was a beautiful mahogany mantle leaning up against the wall. And I made the comment that I have a thrift store, but I also am an avid collector of anything cool and old. And he said, oh, well, you can have that if you can move it out of here. And I said, do you know where it came from? And he said, Juan Batista's home, which I knew was somewhere in Daytona, but didn't know, and now I do, so I can check it out. I have a mantelpiece from that home that was apparently removed during remodeling or whatever was done to it. So I hope to become more involved. And I also started a historic foundation in Lynchburg, Virginia, to redevelop, because it's the city of Seven Hills, very interesting. Each hill has a different phase in history as far as the houses built there. There's so much potential here in Daytona, and it needs to be focused on. I have an extremely close interest in a house on Arlington Place that was Mayor Armstrong's home. And I'm trying to acquire it from the bank. It's in foreclosure and in an estate. And the oak tree in front is known as the Armstrong oak, and it is in the registry of historic or valuable trees because of the size. It's a monstrous oak tree. If you've never recognized the property, I suggest you drive by. It's between Beach and Ridgewood, and I don't know the exact street address, but it's on the left side of Arlington. And it's a barrel tile roof home with an iron fencing around it. Probably I discovered it doing a remodel on, or a refix of a tenement house on Arlington, and was just wowed by the property. It has a detached 4-car garage and a tower above that. It's just very cool. It should be on the historic registry. And Mayor Armstrong, I read a little bit about it, had quite a show going on here, and that was during the time of building the bandshell and the big arch towards the airport. And a lot of the coquina rock from those projects was used in this house for the fireplaces and part of the patio and gardens. And I hope to get it and make it a historic site and have it open. So none of this was the reason I came here, but that's what I had to say on what you're talking about on Earl Street. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's interesting to hear that. And I don't know how many people know that the beachside area is legally Smith's Memento.
No.
Anybody know it?
The beachside area is what?
That's the legal description, Smith's Memento on the beach side.
Oh, you mean the Bush and Stewart?
Between Main Street and Seabreeze and the river and up to Hollywood Street.
The legal description being Bush and Stewart, are you talking about?
It's when it was originally homesteaded by a Canadian who came down here, and his teenage daughter, a young daughter, died suddenly when she was in the midst of planning her wedding, and that's how Pinewood Cemetery came to be. There's so many interesting stories that you could have historical walks and people that are coming to Daytona for the first time. That would get them out and walking and using businesses too. So we're hoping to get some things along that line.
Real quick, when I was in 9th grade, I was vice president of the Future Farmers of America, and we took it upon ourselves to help fix up the Pine House Cemetery. But anyways, okay, go ahead. But I'm not a farmer. Okay.
Jenny Nazak, 413 Harvey, and it's really good to hear people who are caring about the historic and diverse quality of this place, and then we're all trying to make it better. Reed, I'm glad you talked about the occupancy rate. I didn't realize that the vacancy rate was relatively low, but yeah, visually it just stands out right now. But I came up with this thought today, the 3 Ps. How do you fix ISB without spending too much money? So I came up with 3 Ps: plants, paint, and the third P could be people or passion. Plants. Plants in Florida. You have to do work to make plants not grow here. That you actually have to expend a lot of effort to make plants stop growing. So there's a lot of plants actually that look beautiful and soften up the appearance. Even while a building is in disrepair and not yet occupied, what have you, plants hide a multitude of sins. And with my neighbors who do really great landscaping, I'm happy to help compile a list of salt-tolerant plants that, I mean, you can have these shrubs that are like this tall, this wide in a year, certain ones. And also the Surf Riders Foundation, they are proponents of ocean-friendly gardening. They will have species lists as well, and I'm happy to get with them and just compile a list of plants that kind of want to grow here. That would be like sort of like letting nature eminent domain a place and make it look really pretty and then entice some more people. Now, paint. Everybody knows a little bit of paint goes a long way. How about murals? How about like an ISB, an iconic, beautiful mural? I know that the Daytona Wellness Center has talked of commissioning some sort of a mural. I don't know how far that conversation's gone. But in any case, the sides of buildings, great canvas. And then that third P, people, passion. I gave a little talk at 1 Million Cups, the weekly startup thing that happens every Wednesday morning at Cinematique. And we're talking about how do you address this vacancy? And one of the ways is just pride, neighborhood pride. In our neighborhood, I live on Harvey Avenue, and Suzanne over here lives on Oleander. There is a veritable renaissance kind of sparking up at Oleander and Harvey. There are residents of their own accord actively promoting the neighborhood and bringing in people who will take pride and really want to live here and put down roots. I'm just a renter right now, and in the future I hope to own, but at the moment I'm just a renter on Harvey. But I put a lot of heart and soul into our neighborhood as well. And I would say that even if someone's just a tenant, I would encourage you just still put your heart into the neighborhood. And this is a neighborhood where people say good morning to each other, where people sit on each other's porches and have coffee. Now, if we want to address crime, one of the best things we can do is just be outside more, be on the porch, be out in your neighborhood. And we just sometimes forget that we have a lot of power. There's crime in all the great big cities, but the more of us that are out and about just being happy and enjoying our beautiful place, we'll be like a probiotic force against the negative element. And let's see, and speaking of that, the Greek festival coming up this weekend, there's a bunch of us who are probably just going to walk to the Greek festival together. Things like that really make a neighborhood. The neighborhood, this little neighborhood with these relatively compact old houses, relatively small lots, it's super walkable. It's the kind of neighborhood that urban planners all over the world like salivate over and try to create. And we already have it. So can you tell that I am excited about it? And I had said last time that I came that I was going to do some research on what cities are doing to address vacancy. And I did learn a couple of interesting things. One, some cities actually have a tax. They impose a tax on buildings that sit vacant for longer than, say, 6 months, for example. I believe Minneapolis levies a $6,000 vacancy tax after a building is sat vacant, and there's also a registry. The owner has to register that it's vacant. Now, that's a policy thing that would have to obtain political consensus. But I think a more powerful force is the social force. In addition to our own pride in the neighborhood and our own attitude that's infectious, I bet you that all of us, between us, we might even personally know most of those property owners along there that some of those buildings that are sitting empty, maybe we could start a conversation with some people that we know and say, hey, what do you think of maybe lowering the rent on that building, or any room for some flexibility? Just start the dialogue going. And think that's it for now. I'm sure after I sit down, I'll get like 10 more ideas, but it's probably enough to inflict. Thank you guys very much for
Thank you.
being here.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay, you want to make another comment?
Smiley Thurston again, 608 Saxon Boulevard. Now I'd like to speak to what I was really here about. This morning I had a meeting with Reed. My associates and I just acquired a property on ISB with the intentions of reopening it, and we found out there was not so good news, but it ended up being good news. We're not going to change our plan with the property, and we're not going to abandon the property either. But we found out it may be gone when the circle happens. The effort was going to be an upgrade of what was a bar into a ice cream type parlor thing and social and luncheon, still with a beer and wine license though, but not a nightclub. And the property directly across the street we're in the process of acquiring, partially from my nonprofit, but we want to call it the Gateway Galleria. And it's going to be for local artists. The glass blower that has the shop over on Flagler Avenue is interested in New Smyrna, putting a glass blowing operation there too. Several local artists already. The way it happened, I had an artist standing in front of the pub to paint a mural, and he kept looking at the building. And I said, well, I'm trying to think of what to do with it. And he said, make it an art studio. Bingo, the light went on. I said, perfect. Help upgrade the neighborhood. When people eventually are heading to the Hard Rock to their new condos, maybe they'll stop in for some local artwork, and it'll give, I figured out with the square footage, probably room for 8 or 10 vendors inside, all with a mixed use, and making it a little bit of an art museum of maybe some highwayman work and local artist work. And I think that'll, I'm also, she said, excited about what's happening here, although my eyes were a little blind to being on the other side of the county. We all know it's like two different worlds. But that was the reason I appeared, and I hadn't spoken to Reed. I think we probably left looking a little discouraged, but after going back to the property, got excited again and said, well, even if we have a couple of years to do this, we're going to go ahead and do it. We've already paid in cash for the building, so the other option was to resell it, and I don't want to do that because that just makes it look worse along that corridor
You mind if
with
I ask
the
what
vacant
building it
buildings.
was? Which buildings are you talking about?
It was called the Brig
yeah,
at
the Brig,
710.
and across the street with the glass front.
And the big pink building across, we have not finished negotiations on that, but maybe this would ruin it. But I just feel like being in the middle of the street, we were going to call the other property Club 33. My wife came up with that idea, and actually the ground floor where the eatery, the kitchen area and the opening out onto the patio, we have named the Paradise Cantina. Almost. We're clearing the name, but
I was actually best friends with a guy that I owned it prior. That place was a pretty nice place.
yeah.
He passed away of colon cancer. So
Oh, that's a shame.
Steve was his name. He was a really good place. Good luck to you.
Well,
Exactly where is this place?
it's 710
Right next door to Salty Dog.
West, right next door to the Salty Dog. And it's a
710.
little small club that has been there for, probably closed for 5 years, from what I understand. Another person was going to do something with it, but discovered several of the issues I discovered today. It has not chased us off. We're not afraid to realize it may not be around in a few years, but make the best of it. Like I said, already paid for it. And the other building, I don't have the address, but it's right across the street. It has a parking lot on the east and west sides, and it's right in the middle. kind of looked, might have been a car dealership or something. A lot of
It
big
was
picture
a gift
windows.
shop, from what I
What was
remember.
it?
It's the two-story place with the all-glass front.
Right.
Second story's pretty much not ever been in use. It was a gift shop, like a T-shirt shop when I first started my business.
And that's the last thing I would ever want to put in is another T-shirt shop. That's why an artist actually gave me the reason to pursue buying the building. We wanted the parking on either side because the club virtually has no parking, and we were going to have to do valet parking, which would work. But I didn't mean to take up too much time on the plans, but if more people, and this all happened starting 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks, because of a chance encounter, but certainly plan to spread the word about the area. Having been around since 1970 in the building trade here as a licensed contractor, know a lot of people, and I was so thrilled when I saw the paper a week after we closed saying it's now going to be gateway to the beaches, and certainly can't help the reputation. We need to improve it and get rid of a few of the businesses that are there and maybe help them to relocate to where it might be more appropriate to be.
Well, good luck
Anyway,
to you. Well, good
thank
luck
you.
to you, and you got your appointment right over there with Reed.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Hey, welcome to Daytona Beach.
Yeah,
I think
welcome.
this sounds like a great idea. I want to thank you so much. I love your idea. I would love to exchange contact information with you because when that location falls through, I know all my neighbors, we can find you another great location. And we're happy to help you in any way. We want you to come down to our neighborhood. I want you to come over to my street, see what's going on. We are renaissancing my street one house at a time. We got all kinds of fresh investors, homeowners, great renters. I mean, we're just doing something that it's totally happening now. There's something synergistic really going on. And we would love to have you come and join us and meet us and be a part of our plan.
Okay. Is there any other?
you.
Is there any other public comments? Okay. Well,
Have to say something about traffic circles. They make me a little nervous. They seem big. And, as a pedestrian or as a driver, I notice drivers don't always know what to do with them. And they seem to just be this big sweeping thing that ends up, not knocking out small businesses and widening the street. I hate to be a naysayer. I'd like to think that it could be something cool, that it would have beautiful, lush landscaping in the middle or be on a human scale or something. But whenever I think of it, I just think it's all about cars. And I hope that it could be sort of a pedestrian-friendly thing, and then maybe not disrupt the little businesses that are alongside there already. But we're all creative. We'll manage it.
now, Reed. Well, let's keep it down to. Is there any other person that would like to address the board? Okay.
All I was going to say, look at the circles on Hill Street in Smyrna Beach.
Yeah.
Small size, 6 of them in a row, very attractive, and they're not complete circles.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Reed. Is are we talking about roundabouts? On how many of the? How is the roundabouts? Is it a roundabout when you say traffic circles?
Yes, a roundabout at Peninsula NISB and a roundabout at A1A.
And will these roundabouts be in lieu of a traffic signal now?
Yes, the traffic signals go away because in terms of how they function and how they work, they're much safer, both for vehicles and for pedestrians, and that's just the facts. And you're seeing more and more of these placed throughout the country because they don't work everywhere. You have to have the right configuration, the right distances between the one location to the next. So it's not just plop one in. You have to do it in a way that makes sense in terms of where people can cross. How that happens is there's a lot of background now on how to make these very safe and very efficient. They improve the efficiency for moving of vehicles, and you can come down, you can go all the way around and come back the same way you arrived, and you can basically keep moving. You might be moving slow through, but oftentimes you don't even have to stop, depending on what time of day it is.
Personally, I mean, I don't mind having roundabouts on streets like Auditorium or Earl Street, you know, on the side streets. But when we start going into major intersections, I'm against them because I've seen what your average person that's not familiar with roundabouts have done, and I remember the horrors of the Seabury Circle, and that was before you were here. But that's here local. I mean, we were talking about an accident like daily over there. But Dino, you had a comment to make?
How much property do these roundabouts consume? Can they be built on what is already there, or does that just private property have to be acquired?
Private property has to be acquired to do that.
How much private property?
Well, it depends on, again, the size of the circle. The ideas that have been looked at are building a much larger circle. You're familiar with the St. Armand over in Sarasota? Okay. There's actually businesses around the outside of the circle. There's parking on either side of the in the circle itself, parallel parking, and there is in the center a park, and people go back and forth to the park that's in the center. But the idea is not to just copy something like that, but to have a significant gateway and entry and make a statement at that point, and also have a functional traffic circle. So that's what's being looked at.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Do you have any rough sketches of what these circles could look like yet?
I don't yet, but when there's a long way to go here in terms of having the conversations with the state. Otherwise, nothing's going to get very real.
And how would it be safer for a pedestrian to cross when there's no signalized stopping of motor vehicles?
If I could, because people slow down already, and if there are crosswalks, people will slow down at the crosswalks. So the question is really, what are the statistics? How do they work somewhere else? And I have some information on that I could share with you.
And
Okay.
you're only looking for cars coming in one direction rather than two directions when you're on a roundabout.
All
If
right.
there's there'd be a median.
But
As
to
well.
get across from one point to the other,
Right.
You just don't cross the street nearly as fast. They're great. They're great design. They've been on Hilton Head since the early 70s.
Exactly.
And they work wonderfully
They do.
well. And I don't ever remember one accident on any of them because the cars are slowed down, and because they're curving and they're going around.
Yeah.
And by nature, you're watching, you're looking, you're seeing the pedestrians. I think they're the most wonderful design for street intersections in this country.
Okay. All right. Well, we finished with public comments. Let's move on to board comments. Randall, Teresa.
All good.
Okay. Suzanne.
Yes, in the CRA area where I live, or where I'm a resident, I'm more and more out on the street with my neighbors because we are doing a lot of building and development now. And because I'm in real estate, I've kind of married the two together, and I'm bringing a lot of people in and buying one house at a time and renovating it. I'm happy to say that we've got the rents in some of these single-family houses that even the beginning of the year maybe would have been $900 a month. And I'd say a year ago, maybe $500 or $600 a month. And I've just recently rented two of them, one for $1,200 and one for $1,400 a month. And the investors that are coming in are not slum landlords. They are terrific people. They're all from out of state. They're all from out of city. And they go into a neighborhood and they want to make a difference when they leave. They go into low-priced neighborhoods, rundown neighborhoods. And it's just been a joy. Some of my neighbors are here tonight, and we're just having a great time over there. So I'm now more and more, I'm out talking to all my neighbors. My neighbors are coming up to me, and they're thanking me. It's not me. It's just, but they're thanking me for, bringing people in. I do the free design for them. I do the landscape free design. I do any of the architectural details. That's non-structural design for them. And anyway, so I'm meeting more and more and more neighbors in the area that I live in. And we are all of the same opinion. The streets need to be cleaned by the city of Daytona Beach. We deserve to have our streets cleaned. And I don't mean the street sweeper. I mean out there cleaning the mediums, cleaning up the garbage, cleaning up the debris. And we need to have our trees and our bushes trimmed. So we live in a CRA area, and it seems to me, and not just me, but the majority of all my neighbors, that's one of their main complaints, is that these streets need to be cleaned on a regular basis. And I've lived there for 4.5 years, and I've never seen our street cleaned one time. I don't mean the machines. I mean people out there, like I see them on Main Street, and I see them on A1A. So we're really all getting real vocal about this, and it's from ISB to Main Street, from Halifax to Grandview. And that's the area I live in. The second thing that everybody feels real strongly about, and they keep coming to me because they know I sit on this board, okay? So we have a police station that is directly across the street from where I live, okay? If we would put a walking policeman on these streets in the CRA, one walking policeman that would just walk every street every day, touch every resident, talk to every... I wish we had, like it was in the old days, where a policeman had to live in the neighborhood in which they served, so they knew all the people. So we're still chasing a few last homeless people, and God bless them, I know they got to live somewhere, but my neighbors don't want them living in the yards next door to their homes, okay? So Captain Newcomb works with us, and we're trying to do the best we can do on that. But we've got that down to a minimum now from what it was 4.5 years ago. So we all feel that if we had a walking policeman, not on a bike or on a bicycle, but somebody whose presence was there every day. So every day, at least once or twice a week, I would see that person. This would solve all of this problem of the homeless in these residential neighborhoods. And cleaning up the streets would just be so wonderful. And it would give me a break because I'm now cleaning almost 2/3 of the street on both sides of where I live. So and we're real serious about this. I mean, it's a simple solution to clean up what's a really bad problem that it's such a simple solution. It cannot be that expensive to do those two things. And that's where we are. And that's my mantra for the year.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, Linda, would you like to say anything?
I agree with all of that. I think having a walking policeman would be incredible because just like Reed says, you can drive an area all the time, but you don't see anything like what you see when you walk it. And we really need to have a policeman who could walk that area. And street and sidewalk cleanup, I really agree with that. The other thing I think is critical is code enforcement. We just need to have a more active code enforcement board, staffing, not board, but staffing, and that they will do something to enforce the codes that we already have. They just need to be enforced. And we already have all the tourists, so we have people that are here. We have a wonderful history. We have a beautiful surroundings. So we don't have to try and get those things that are really hard to get. All we need to do is code enforcement, policing, and cleanup, and we'd be there.
All right, thank you. Dino, do you have any comments?
Can I say one thing?
Sure. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say one thing about code enforcement, Linda, and this is my experience. We've had great response with code enforcement. I think they may be understaffed right now because of the economy of the situation, but I know almost all of the code enforcement officers, and myself and my neighbors and things, when we call them, they are very, very responsive. I think they're doing a bang-up job over there. I don't think they have enough help, maybe. But I see them all the time and fixing stuff all the time. So just call them and talk to
I
them.
have called and I've gone online before, so
Okay.
we'll continue to do that.
Okay, and then I'm not going to make any comments, so I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.